people are aware of procurement, they hearing procurement, they tend to think about like the request for proposal, right? The RFP, which you could, clearly stated your spec, what you needed, how you evaluate. In the end, if you win, you get a contract. So what I actually have been working on in the last few years is actually looking at a more ways how we can use procurement to bring in procure innovative solutions. Yeah. Because, so I use an example is that, you know what, if you're going to buy a pen, right, so you're going to say, I need a pen. That looks like this. But if you want innovation, then you should say, I need an apparatus operated by hand, right, for me to transfer my thoughts onto a piece of paper. Then it could be a pen, it could be something else. If you want to be more bold, you can say, you don't even have to tell them operate by hand, right? So it could be operate by voice. Like I said, what I'm waiting for one day my brainwave to operate that, right? Like run me onto a piece of paper. So if you want to incent innovation, then how you develop your spec is very important. Now, on the other hand, if you very open-ended spec, then how are you evaluating? I talk to a lot of startups, right? So they say, well, there's this proposal coming in, and they say they want this, but my solution actually is going to be hit all of that, but very different, right? And how am I going to submit that? I said, well, the thing is, you have to look at their request for proposal. Usually they already say, here's the 5 things how I'm going to evaluate, right? So you have to really kind of be able to describe all of that. So as an issuer, we should also always think about it, how we can evaluate in a fair and open and transparent way, right? So actually one of the interesting, I think one of your technologies, so one of the examples I was hearing is like, you know, in the old common transition time, a lot of data is like they run by batch, right? So if they say, you know, the frequency of the batching and whatever as a mandatory requirement, and what you propose is a real-time data, then, oh my gosh, you cannot meet the mandatory requirement because you don't have to run batching. But your real-time solution is way better, right? So when you write that spec, we need to be kind of saying back is how can we be more open, how the evaluation can be allowed the innovative solution comes in. In some cases, even simple like building the contract. So even if you don't change any of your procurement process, you do the contract, sometimes the contract can allow, once you do the term of the contract, you can, because things change, right? Maybe 3 years down the road, actually, it's a legacy system already. So how can we be able to provide you more innovative solutions during the term of contract? So though all of those should be considered. That is a more generic proposal, process, and you're making it a little bit more open. But actually, I have been looking at my team working on it in the past is looking at all the other jurisdictions in UK, in Portugal. Actually, I just came back from Halifax, so I was talking to people in UK, in BC, and in Portugal. One of the things that we talked about, and it's a lot of time, is that, you know, especially in healthcare, if you have a solution, if you have a really innovative solutions, in treatment, for example, if we had to have an implant that replace multiple cardio drugs, right? So you change the who will deliver the service, how it's going to deliver, what is being delivered, and where and when. You change all of that. So there's a lot of change management has to happen up front. Not until you have a good solution, and then you knock on doors, they can be buy this, right? This is kind of late. You cannot expect that change. Also, so actually, what a lot of time you're saying is that, you know what? Actually, I was listening to your talk on hackathon, and what we are promoting is that, you know what, the people who actually need to procure should go out up front and say, you know what, I need something 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road. Here's are the things that I'm looking for. Here's are the values. Here's the outcome. So instead of saying what are exactly my needs, I'm going to tell you what the outcome I want to achieve, what the values is for me, right? So it could be the patient recovery rate is faster, right? It could be the caregiver lifestyle is better, right? And all of that. So you tell them what you think you need 3-5 years ahead. So then you have the engagement and dialogue, and then develop the solution. Because when you were engaged all along, instead of someone develop a solution 2 years, 2 years down the road, and then say, can you buy this? And then you try to figure out, okay, if I'm going to adopt this, what the change management is. And then sometimes the decision process is so slow that what is no longer innovative by the time you adopt it. Unfortunately, sometimes technology, development life cycle could be 18 months, 24 months. And then nowadays, we see a lot of time the adoption rate is 4 years, right? So it's really too slow, and how we want to do that. So that's why we've been promoting a lot of different things. So if you look at the government website, and also there's a Center for Technical Centers Excellence. They run some engagement forums. We actually even run innovation bootcamp. So actually, I was just hearing you saying and say, it's not easy to articulate what your needs are, right? It's hard to say, here's the data, here's what I need is. We actually run boot camps for mental health. Had them to figure out what exactly we need and how we articulate that to the innovators or the researchers for them to start thinking about it. So actually we ran a boot camp for them, and we ran a boot camp for community care. So a lot of time is the confirmation. We run another boot camp, and then the people in the room, we bring in few vendors. It's not intended to sell, but it's to kind of tell them what are the technology, what are the functionality, what is available out there, right? And after they leave the room and they were talking, and they're like, oh my God, we were hoping that, you know what, we will go out to the market and buy something 3 years down the road, and we hope to get it 5 years from now. But all these functionalities are actually already in the market. We didn't even know that. So that engagement, that dialogue is not happening fast enough, soon enough, and often enough. And what we try to do is promote that dialogue upfront, earlier, and safer. Because a lot of times people don't know how to engage the innovators or the vendors or the industry, right? So it's kind of, that's the change in the whole, especially in healthcare, because there's a lot of change in every country now, you see. There's a lot of forums of this coming out. So I just thought, so how is that, maybe something to share, and hopefully you find it interesting. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer some of that or go into a little more detail.
I'm expecting many.
Yeah. An area where I've been so curious for so long. I guess my big question is, how willing is the government to adopt this process that's less, in which they don't immediately jump to a solution before understanding the problem? I mean, I spend a lot of time, even with corporations, and people don't spend a lot of time on defining the problem. They'll write a requirements doc and then expect you to build it when it comes to software, and then it might not be the right thing. It might not actually help the business in any way. So the same kind of reframing and repositioning what the needs are or what success looks like before you even start describing what you're actually going to build isn't just a government problem.
No.
And so, I feel like I have that conversation almost every day. And I'm just wondering how willing the government is to adopt, I guess, a more humble approach to the way in which they see problems and the way in which they see potential outcomes.
Yeah, so actually it's a 4-year program, so this is the second year. And it's a change of culture. It's a huge change of risk averse, and also, people are, and also the general process works 90% of the time, right? What we really are talking about is there's a few percentage of the time you need something different. I mean, you don't really need to do all this dialogue and engagement seriously to buy a pen or piece of paper or furniture, right? So, and we're talking about having people to have new skill sets for the few percentage of procurement. It's a huge change, and there were actually now about a couple hundred people have been trained this year, but then it's still small, right? Government is large, so general process is going to take a while, and there's a lot of fear, right? Because there's a lot of risk when you open up that, and now I mean, people generally call RFP, and I now try to encourage people to call ours request for solution. I said, let's think about request for solution, right? So you want to pose a problem, and you want them to provide you a solution. That's going to be, that also creates a bit of risk, right? Because now I know what I'm going to get when I say I want a pen. Now I say apparatus. It does create some fear that how on earth I'm going to operate this apparatus, right? And so there's a whole framework that we built, like risk management, even IP, because there's a design partnership. So there's a lot of different innovative procurement models that actually being used in different jurisdictions. So like including partnership, few stages partnership. There's something called competitive dialogue. So there's a lot of different ways. So there's a lot of new skill sets, and it's not simple. So I have to say you won't be able to see it in the market so soon, but I think that is a movement. So I'm hoping actually in between the end of April and the first week of June, just in the healthcare side, every week, in 6 weeks in a row, we had some kind of conference or event on innovation. So I think there is a movement. Actually, Usually Health, if you notice, they just hired a chief of health innovation strategist. He's in place. This is his third week, I think. So I think it's taking time, but I think this is going to come because people realize is that there's economic pressure. And we, as a government, we need to actually incent economic development. At the same time, we want to bring in solutions that are sustainable, right? We can't just pay for something innovative with a payment, but we want innovative solutions that help sustain the sustainability, so that the public service can be developed and sustained and provided to Ontarians, right? So I think there's a lot of incentive and a lot of interest, but it's just going to take time.
But you're convinced that it'll continue to develop?
Yes, so it is a 4-year program,
Yeah.
and this is only the second year, right? And as I said, not just Ontario, Portugal, UK had done quite a number of that, and Netherlands. So everybody is moving towards that because now they realize, this is a better way to bring in innovative solutions.
Could you remind me of the name of the program again? The 4-year program?
So I don't think the program itself is on public website, but if you look at some of the documents at Healthcare Supply Chain Network, they have some training that material provided. If you look at Ontario Centers of Excellence, they have something called Advancing Health. So there's a lot of, and then also there's a Ontario Health Innovation Council, OHIC.ca. They actually, as part of that, we also have put a panel together and recommended. So there's a report out of that. So there's really a lot of pushing. The thing is they help people, the people on the ground needs to be able to adopt it, right? And that's where they're taking time. But a lot of hospitals, a lot of communities are actually very interested, and I expect to see great things.
On the subject of healthcare, and in the civic technology community, one of the favorite stories these days is about healthcare.gov, and the way in which that was such a that the problems with that website were so public, and that it sparked a lot of anger, especially given the size of the contracts related to that. And but then on the plus side, technologists are really excited by what the story that came out of that about who fixed the problem, and that there was a sort of team of, I don't know, someone might know the story better than me, but there was a kind of team of a sort of like new technology SWAT team that sort of like came in to like fix it really quickly. that was pulled in from Silicon Valley kind of thing, and who very quickly and at comparatively low cost, like fixed the thing that had been supposedly botched by whoever was supposed to do it right. So, I mean, I wonder if you have, if like, obviously, like that's far, well, not that far, but far from here. If you have any sort of, what your take is on that story and what we heard about it in the media.
Yeah, so I don't know a lot about that, so it's hard for me to comment because on the surface it's hard to tell what's behind the story, right? So, but I do think that there's a lot of work needs to be done on data and integrations because there's a lot of fragmented approach, right? And that's part of the problem. It's a lot of things that happen in isolation and not in an integrated approach. Right? So sometimes you just kind of like it may seem a great thing but then so I think that's why we hope to have more dialogue also, right? So more engagement, more integration is very